Welcome to the HomeFront Software Overview video. This short video is intended to give a high-level overview of the various aspects of what makes up the HomeFront software solution. Individual components will be available in greater detail in subsequent videos. For single-family production builders, many times they want to follow a particular process, and the HomeFront software facilitates that. Oftentimes people will initially define what they offer for various products in different projects or communities that they work in. And in doing so, they go through an exercise of defining the various floor plans, elevations, and options that they want to offer. And in doing so, there's the need to be able to determine what the cost is of those plans. If we look at a particular floor plan, for example, we may want to identify the different communities or regions or neighborhoods, whatever your terminology may be, where those plans are going to be offered in. The level of detail that we want to establish from a cost breakdown can be established as well, some of which might have cost items that are representative of unit pricing. Others might be more representative of lump sum bid or turnkey pricing, where we're managing quoted values for the various preferred vendors that are being used within the different regions or neighborhoods that you work in. The item database that you build as the basis for your cost buildup is broken down into whatever level of detail that makes the most sense to you. Some of those items might be more representative for tracking lump sum bid requests. Others might be more unit price driven, where you're sourcing out your own materials and you're managing unit pricing from your various suppliers that you purchase those materials from. The level of detail that you take things to is entirely up to you. Again, the idea being is when you understand your costs, arriving at a retail or selling price becomes that much easier. And the tools that we provide to allow you to publish a price book to your sales center become available to you as well. When we're preparing a pricing worksheet, what we can do is identify all the different floor plans and be able to work forward from a cost up to a proposed selling price. Again, this is just a worksheet. It's not necessarily what the sales agents are going to see. This is what the people in the back office are working with. So if we look at these different plans in these particular regions, the cost that we're working with, if we were to apply certain markup or margin percentages, would arrive at a particular proposed price. Or conversely, we might also want to be able to implement a market price where we can type in the proposed price and let it calculate what that translates to in terms of a markup percentage of your sheer dollar amounts of profit. The point being is whatever value you supply, the remaining values are going to calculate based on that input. And only when you're satisfied with those proposed price numbers would you ever publish them and make them the active pricing that would be in effect within the sales module that we'd be feeding. You always have the ability to compare the proposed price to the currently published price as well. And for the purposes of costing, many times people want to be able to establish a retail price for a customer today for a home that they haven't even started construction on. And oftentimes there may be price fluctuations from your suppliers or your trades during that time. So to address that particular issue, we allow you to use a costing basis that takes into consideration possible price adjustments. And we can use a very simple cost forecasting methodology where we can take all of our standard purchase order indexes, is what we call them, and we can apply percentage adjustments up or down relative to today's current cost, say for the example, and forecast up to, say, the next 12 months, where we want to adjust our framing materials and hold them constant for the next 12 months to see what would that do to my numbers if the framing materials were to increase 5%, or what if concrete was to increase 2%, and be able to use that as the basis for my starting point that I'm then working forward from. And then being able to analyze those in greater detail as well. For those in management that are going to review that information, they may want to be able to come back and critique those numbers in greater detail, where they can go through and drill into the cost breakdown to see exactly where those costs were derived from. The idea being is when you're comfortable that in your costs, you're that much more comfortable in the pricing that you're publishing to your sales team. Which leads into the next phase where sales and estimating and purchasing kind of can interact depending on the nature of the work that you do, where sales is going to want to manage all of their leads and prospects and things of that nature. And within our web-based sales and CRM module, we can track all of those leads and opportunities within there as well, where we can ultimately get somebody to the point where they're interested enough where we're going to prepare a quote for them, a sales quote, where they can go through and define what it is that they're looking for. They can choose what's available for different lot inventories offerings that you have within the different communities that you are working in. And then in addition to that, choosing the various floor plans that will fit on those lots is also available for them to be able to manage as well. And then any selections of upgrades or options and things of that nature are also available for the sales agent to help guide the customer through the selection process, ultimately taking them to the point where all of their sales contract documents and all of the required information that's gathered through the sales cycle can be managed, whether that's submitting of custom price requests, where estimating and purchasing can interact with those quotes and feed that back to sales, and to the point where when we've reached the point of sales contract and we've submitted it for management approval, we then have the means for the sales manager to go through the approval process, and at which point we now have something that estimating and purchasing are going to want to process. So in the back office, the purchaser's inbox or the estimator's inbox gets completed with any newly accepted sales contracts. And they will then be able to see which particular jobs have not yet been processed, so they can go through and grab the appropriate job that they want. And it will retrieve all of the selected items that the customer made, whether it's a base plan, any elevations, any options, and it will retrieve the baseline template takeoff for all of those particular items. In this example, we're looking at an Avalon Elevation C, which is the floor plan that was chosen. With all of its corresponding cost breakdowns, preferred vendors were retrieved based on the neighborhood or community that the job is in, along with the appropriate pricing for those vendors for the appropriate scope of work. Once we've gone through and we've reviewed those numbers, the budgets can then be established and posted into accounting, at which point the same information that we use to prepare the budget can also be used for the purposes of purchase order creation. Depending on how you issue your POs, you may want to issue your purchase orders in stages. Maybe you have a stage release purchasing methodology where you don't issue all your POs at one time, you do them at different release points. In this particular example, we've got a multi-stage purchase order release, and we can go through and we can review them individually if we need to, at which point when we're reviewing them, we can make alterations to the values, maybe reassign the work to different vendors depending on what the case may be. And when the purchase order itself does get generated, we can submit the purchase order to the vendor and also post that information to accounting so that the accounting has both budget and purchase order details depending on the accounting system that's being integrated to. We are somewhat of an agnostic system when it comes to accounting systems. We do integrate with the various Sage products, both Sage 100 Contractors, Sage 300 Construction Real Estate, Sage 50 in Canada, QuickBooks, Canada and the US, and in Australia and New Zealand, MYOB and Xero. Once a home is under construction and purchase orders are issued, we likely reach a point where we're now wanting to create a schedule. Those schedules entail defining the various activities that we want to be able to track on any given job, where we create, based on the template that best represents the style of home that we're building, it will establish the construction baseline based on what tasks and activities go into your particular template, as well as it will identify all the different tasks that are associated to the trades that are assigned to that particular job, and it will associate those automatically to the schedule so that for notification purposes, we know who it is that you gave the work to when you were creating the job in the first place. So we can go through and have the system assist in keeping the trades notified of any schedule adjustments or updates, and also the means of people who are in the field on the job site to be able to manage and maintain those schedules using different mobile applications, whether it's run from their phone, an iPad, a tablet, or just their computer or what have you. Being able to access the schedule, indicate whether tasks are started or completed, and also the ability to indicate as tasks are being completed, whether they want to approve any related purchase orders for payment. So as they complete a task, if that task also has purchase orders associated with it, they'll then be given the opportunity to review those purchase orders and indicate whether those POs are also approved for payment or not, as well as being able to preview a copy of the purchase order to see what exactly it entails as well. So that information can then be fed back to accounting, who then process the work and post it on into accounts payable for check processing. Once we've reached that stage where construction is underway or maybe even completed, the last portion of the system, at least from a high level perspective, is the service and warranty phase, where we go through and we complete the various punch lists that happen maybe at the turnover stage, where we're turning the home over to the homeowner, where we go through and we complete the checklists, identify any deficiencies, and create any service work orders to track all of the different warranty work that's being managed. There's different ways that we can look at the information. We may want to look at it by open work orders by vendor, open work orders by customer, by job number, by community. There's various ways that you can manage and view the work. The idea being is we don't want information to slip through the cracks, so when we create a work order, it contains as much detail as we want the vendor and the customer to see, and also the ability to keep track of everything on that customer's profile. Have access to at our fingertips of every selection that customer made, even at the sales cycle. What options went into their home? What were their color selections? Which vendors worked on this home? Are there any items that we're not covering under warranty because they maybe supplied their own material in certain instances? As well as a full history of everything that's gone on in that particular home, all past service requests, any walkthrough punch lists that were completed, and all of the details that came out as a result of that. Having access to a full history allows us to do the necessary reviews and analysis and spotting of any trends for warranty tracking purposes and whatnot. So from a high level perspective, that's essentially what comprises the HomeFront system. For additional detail views, please visit our video section to look at the specific components that we touch on in greater detail. Thank you.